Hello, everyone, and welcome to this episode of Ignition Time. On this channel, we explore the latest news pertaining to the country, the economy, as well as our money. Let's take a look at some of the important news that's emerging in Washington, D.C. today. Let's start with this back to normal White House press briefing room. Yes, folks, the White House press briefing room is now back to normal with 100% capacity because individuals are now able to pack themselves into the White House briefing room and ask questions. In fact, let's take a look at this brief video clip showing a 100% capacity in the White House press briefing room following 15 months of social distancing post-pandemic. Let's take a look as life starts to return back to normal in the White House. Let's watch. In the meantime, in some pretty incredible comments from the 45th President of the United States, former President Trump praised the conservative Democrat from West Virginia, Joe Manchin, for his refusal to do away with the filibuster. In fact, former President Trump said this, I quote, "It's a very important thing. He's doing the right thing, and it's a very important thing." Former President Trump repeatedly urged the Senate Minority Leader, Mitch McConnell, who was then the Senate Majority Leader, to get rid of the filibuster. Well, it looks like former President Trump either forgot what he said to Mitch McConnell or he basically thinks that people don't remember. But either ways, politics, folks, is about timing, opportunity, tribalism, and perception. It's about us versus them. In the meantime, the effort to try and get everyone vaccinated across the country continues. Here's a tweet on your screen from Reed Wilson, who's a correspondent for The Hill. And Reed reports that Albany in New York will void a parking ticket for anyone who gets vaccinated. Pretty interesting incentive. In the meantime, in other news from The Hill, a Senate Republican said this, and I quote, and by the way, this is an important and well-known Senate Republican. I'm talking about Senator Roy Blunt, the Republican from Missouri. And he said this, and you see this headline on your screen from The Hill. "You really have to treat Russia like it's virtually a criminal enterprise." Pretty incredible comments. In fact, let's take a look at the entire quote. Remember 2016, as late as early 2017, we had cyber defense capabilities, but we didn't have the authority. The president had never given the authority for cyber offense. And so when we did push back, we pushed back pretty hard. In 2018, it stopped. I think to some extent, you really have to treat Russia like it's virtually a criminal enterprise. You know, they harbor criminals. They don't appreciate the rule of law or any kind of level of personal freedom. And I do think we have to push back. When there's no penalty, there's no sanctions, hard to find who's doing it. In some other reporting from The Hill, and you'll see this headline on your screen as well, a former Trump economic advisor says, "Stop taxing, stop spending, stop borrowing." These are the words of the former Trump economic advisor, Stephen Moore, who slammed President Biden's infrastructure proposal, urging the Democrats to stop. He said this, and I quote, "The biggest danger I see for the economy is rising prices and the taxes Biden wants. If we can stop that from happening, I think we can see a really strong rest of the year. So Joe Biden, stop taxing, stop spending, stop borrowing, and this economy will be just fine." Let me know whether you agree or disagree with comments from the former Trump economic advisor, Stephen Moore. Let me know what you think in the comment section below. In the meantime, it's very clear that Manchin is a thorn in President Biden's side. Here's another article on your screen from The Hill. Manchin to vote against election overhaul bill. So clearly, Manchin is causing headaches for the president. In the meantime, the White House is focused on Russia, like I mentioned earlier, like Senator Roy Blunt, blatantly talking about the threat that Russia poses and the fact that it should be considered a criminal enterprise. President Biden is actually scheduled to meet with the Russian dictator Putin, and the National Security Advisor Jake Sullivan said this: "We do not regard a meeting with Putin as a reward for Russia, that is. We regard it as a vital part of defending America's interests and America's values." Let's roll the tape and hear from the National Security Advisor, Jake Sullivan. Let's watch.
Now, we have made clear repeatedly, and I will reinforce again today, that we do not regard a meeting with the Russian president as a reward. We regard it as a vital part of defending America's interests and America's values. Joe Biden is not meeting with Vladimir Putin despite our country's differences. He's meeting with him because of our country's differences. There is simply a lot we have to work through. We believe that President Biden is the most effective direct communicator of American values and priorities, and we believe that hearing directly from President Putin is the most effective way to understand what Russia intends and plans. There is never any substitute for leader-to-leader engagement, particularly for complex relationships. But with Putin, this is exponentially the case. He has a highly personalized style of decision-making, and so it is important for President Biden to be able to sit down with him face-to-face, to be clear about where we are, to understand where he is, to try to manage our differences, and to identify those areas where we can work in America's interests to make progress. When President Biden returns to Washington next week, we believe that we will be in a materially stronger position to manage the major threats and challenges this country faces: COVID, climate, China, cyber, Russia, and shaping the rules of trade and technology for the future.
And if you thought that was interesting, by the way, what is really interesting is former President Trump's approach towards Russia, tiptoeing around them, which I thought was super interesting and, to be honest, completely bizarre. Speaking of bizarre, here's another bizarre comment from former President Trump, and he said this, I quote, "Young people, they can't walk without computers. What they can do with them is incredible." I don't know what to say about that, but let's take a look at President Trump saying that on Fox. Let's roll the tape and watch.
Young people, they can't walk without computers. That what they can do with them is incredible. I'm witness to it because as a young person, my 15-year-old son is, he's just a genius with this stuff.
And finally, this is news that has just emerged. This is reporting from CNN Politics. You'll see this headline on your screen from CNN Politics. Trump's chief of staff, Mark Meadows, pushed the Department of Justice to investigate these baseless election fraud claims that continuously are being pushed by former President Trump. Please click the like button. Please subscribe. Please enable notifications. Thank you so much for watching. I appreciate you being a part of our community. If you're not a part of our community yet, please consider clicking the like button. Please subscribe. Please enable notifications. We look forward to seeing you in the next episode of Ignition Time. Thanks. Take care. Bye.